This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning and welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Damon, and behind the camera this morning we've got Marcel. And we've come out into a freezing, chilly morning here in northern KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, and we've managed to find a pride of lions first thing just before the sun starts to rise. Now, having a look around, there are 6 lions around us at the moment. And now we can just see the 2, maybe the 3 for now. See how well camouflaged they are lying in this long grass. There's a couple more behind the vehicle. They're all pretty well concealed. And it looks like 2 adult lionesses and 4 sub-adults. So the same lions that you all would have seen last night with Djuma. And of course this morning, the first 45 minutes of drive are going to be dedicated to all the younger viewers out there. So kiddies and parents, if you have any questions, please send them through to us at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Look at that big lioness up at the top. See how she's peering above the grass, looking off into the distance. Now, they positioned themselves up on this ridge line, and from up here she's got a fantastic view of the valley below. Looking at her, it did look like she had a relatively empty belly, and so perhaps she caught a glimpse of something moving off in the distance. It actually looks like one of the lionesses behind us has just stood up, and she might be coming towards. Look, they've all stood up. They've seen the other lioness moving. Let's see if she comes to greet the rest of her family. Oh, there they go. All into the road. Okay, we're going to try and catch up with them. We've got to do a bit of a reposition here. But all the youngsters have just stood up and gone to go and greet one of the other lionesses. So we're going to turn around and go and catch up with the action. Okay, while we go and try and get another view of these lions, we're going to send you across to Trish, who's got some cold Impalas.
My Impala, very cold, much like myself this morning. We're out here on Juma, and it is about 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Doesn't sound too bad, but it is a little bite in the air. Hi everyone, my name is Trishana, and I've got Darby on camera this morning, and we have lots of plans. Our plans are, of course, to come through quarantine, see these lovely antelope, but apart from that, we want to go and visit the den, which I think will be really, really cool. Hopefully Ribbon will be there, and the cub will be there as well. The sun is starting to poke out, but also taking this opportunity to listen to any clues that the bush gives us. Remember, kids, the bush gives us lots of clues. We just have to be available to listen to them and to look for them. Too well for us when it's a little bit breezy as well for the animals, because they can't listen very well, but it does bode well for the predators. Hopefully they'll be out and about. I'm going to be looking for tracks as well on the way down. It's a little bit cold for the cubbies at the den to be out, so we're going to wait just a little bit longer, and we're going to look for tracks along the way first. So let's go. All right. Well, I'm going to send you back over to those wonderful lions for the morning, and I'm going to keep on tracking.
Welcome back, everyone. The lions haven't gone too far. It's just that initial excitement of all of the youngsters seeing that one lioness get up, and they all get all excited. Oh, Mum, you're going to go get us food. You're going to go get us food. Or, oh, Mum, we haven't seen you in a little while. So they all kind of hurried up to her, and went to, oh, look at this. Look at this youngster's busy stalking one of the lionesses. Look at that. It was a very half-hearted pounce. But a pounce it was nonetheless. Listen to those little groans as they greet each other. Like I said, it's a pretty chilly morning here at andBeyond Phinda. And so with these low temperatures, these lions are going to be making use of the cool of the early morning to move around as much as they can. Pretty sure that later today, there's no clouds in the sky at the moment, so the sun could get pretty intense, and these lions will then want to go and find somewhere to rest. I know that they're moving further away. I just want us to stick here for a few more minutes. There's a youngster that's coming around the back of the vehicle, and he's probably going to come right past us. Just give him a second. That's what this other youngster is waiting here in the road for, waiting for her brother. And I was just saying to Marcel now, the area that we're in, and I'll show you on the map while we wait for this young male to come past. Or rather, let's wait. Here he comes. Have a look at this young male. See the little mohawk that's starting to grow on the back of his neck? And the fluff around his cheeks? Oh, look, his sister's ambushing him as well. Let's see what happens. It wasn't very much of an ambush. I'll reposition us now, but I would just like to show you exactly where we are on the reserve at this time. So, as I said, there's these 4 youngsters and the 2 adult lionesses, and they're a part of a pride of lions that lives in this part of the reserve, which is, and these, we refer to them as the mountain pride. And we're currently over here, just on the edge of the mountains there. Down here, there's another pride of lionesses that lives in this area here. And so these lions have been scent marking quite a bit. We've been watching them since early this morning, and that's probably why the other pride of lions may have come past here, and they may have smelt those lions, which is why they have been spending time here just scent marking, making sure that those other lionesses don't come into the territory. Enough of that though, let's follow along. They are moving down the road. Right, they're on the move. Like we said earlier, that lioness was looking like she was scanning down into the valley, looking for some potential prey. And it's always, with these lions being so active, you never know what could happen. If they stumble upon an Ngala or a warthog or a zebra, the atmosphere of the whole sighting could change very quickly if they do spot some potential prey. So, if I get the name pronunciation wrong, I apologize. I believe it's Chet. You are 4 years old, and you're asking why are lions called the king of the jungle? It's because many, many years ago, when the European settlers came to Africa, and they saw these lions, and they saw how fierce they were, and how they would catch animals bigger than they were, like buffaloes and giraffes, and then they would see how fierce they were with all their fighting amongst each other, and they saw how brave the lions could be, and all of those characteristics, being brave and being strong, those are all things that a human king is supposed to be. And so that's why the people thought that the lions must surely be the kings of the jungle. Look at this youngster in front of us, going to go stalk one of her siblings again. Look at that. So lots of play going on. Like I said, it's nice and cool. So these lions are going to be active. But definitely worth our while to follow them for a bit. Okay, interesting. Look at this. So just over the hill in front of us is where one of the adult lionesses has gone. The second one has gone off to our left. And she's looking very interested. Her ears are pricked forward. She's listening carefully. So that might mean that she's heard something moving in the bushes. Perhaps both lionesses have heard it, and they've done a bit of a kind of like a pincer movement to try and encircle whatever it is. Although now looking at her body language, she's kind of slumped again a little bit. And so I don't think that whatever she found is of interest. Lee, who's 8 years old, you're asking if the two different lion prides that I spoke about are cousins. So we said that there was one pride that lives in this area here, which is the ones that we're with now, and then another pride that lives in this area here. And Lee, they are not cousins. They're not related at all. So all the lions within this pride will be related to each other, and all the lions that live in this pride here will be related to each other. But the two prides next door to each other, they are not cousins, no. Because what happens, Lee, with lions is that if a female lion is born into a pride, she will stay with that pride for her whole life. She will not leave that pride unless it's very unusual circumstances that happen. If it's a young male, he will, when he gets to about 2 or 2.5 years old, he will be pushed away from his pride. His father or the dominant male of the pride will push him far, far away, and then he'll have to move a massive distance away from where he was born and from the rest of his family to go and start his own family. And that's how lions make surely that they keep the genetic diversity as big as possible, and they keep brothers and sisters from mating. Okay, we're going to carry on following these lions and see where they go, but in the meantime, while we try and catch up with them, we'll send you across to Juma, where they've got a beautiful sunrise.
Good morning and welcome, everybody, and boys and girls. Good morning to you on this wonderful day, coming to you from quite a chilly Djuma Private Game Reserve, where it's 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit. The same numbers they gave us yesterday, but today is freezing cold. And kids, if you have any questions, please send them through to kidsquestions at wildearth.tv. Now, I'm just going to allow you to soak in the sunrise. Excuse me. Hello, Jack. 6 years old. You want to know how the sun moves so quickly? Well, Jack, apparently the sun is actually fixed in one place in the universe, and it is actually the Earth that is turning. And because the Earth moves at the speed it moves, that is why our days are what they are. And in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, depending where you are, we are in winter now, which means that the Earth is tilted at a very big angle, and because the Earth is tilted so far, that means the sun comes up much later in the morning and sets earlier in the evening, which means we have very short days. Because the days are shorter, there's less sun, and the sun is at a different angle, and so that's why it gets cold. If you were on the North Pole, the sun would stay up all day long, because as the Earth is turning, the sun just sort of stays there the whole time because it's got nowhere to set to. So it's actually the Earth moving at an enormous speed, so fast that if you had to think about it, it could actually make you a little bit dizzy. So we're moving around the sun. It is really a magnificent theory and story, and I've never been out to space. I'd love to go though. Wouldn't you? I think that's every boy and girl's dream, to go sit in space and walk in a vacuum. Okay, good morning everybody. Once again, we're going to follow on this road. Thank you, Edna. Hello, Edna. You want to know how do you become a safari guide? Well, in South Africa, there's a number of courses you can go on. And the shortest term course is about 6 months. And you do lots of training, wildlife training and education, and you write a few tests. A driver's license is obviously important, and in South Africa you need to be 21 to be able to drive a vehicle with what we call a professional driver's permit. So you need to be 21, you write some tests. It is advisable at school to do subjects like biology, because biology teaches you a lot about animals and all the little ins and outs of plants and things. It helps a lot. You don't have to do biology, but if you don't do biology at school, I don't know what it's called these days. It used to be called biology when I was a kid. If you don't do biology, you can still get by, but you've got to learn things that you didn't learn at school, and that becomes quite difficult. So you go on courses, and in South Africa the accredited courses are called FGASA, so it's the Field Guides Association of South Africa. And once you've gone through one of their courses, you then need a first aid certificate, which is very important. They're not difficult to do. They're normally about 2-day courses where you learn all about first aid, and then you do practicals. And obviously a driver's license is important. And as you go on, you can then get what we call the Trails Guide, which is walking. You learn how to walk in the wilderness. Then you need to get all sorts of firearm training and competency. Many guides that come into the industry have got level 1 and Trails Guide. That is kind of the industry standard. And you need 2 years to get your level 2, and then 3 years to get your level 3, and then you can start to specialize. So there's many companies that do the courses, and I know that they're even doing them online at the moment because of what's going on around the world. But there's nothing nice than coming and spending 6 months in a wilderness camp, learning all about the wilderness. You can probably easily find it by doing a little search on the internet. So you don't have to go to university. I went to university to study nature conservation, which then turned me into a guide. So I did the backwards route. Hope that answers your question, Edna. We had some male leopard tracks before, everybody, that were heading sort of in this direction. I had a look at the way it was walking. And if you were with us the other day and you saw Hukumuri, I tracked Hukumuri. He's a big male leopard that's been interacting with Mulwati, the other male leopard. And Hukumuri's got a very definite issue with his foot. And he's putting a lot of effort on his back leg because his front paw is quite sore. So last time we saw it. And so the tracks I saw before were of a male walking very, very nicely. So it's Mulwati, and we were tracking him, and then he vanished. No doubt he just jumped off the road and was hiding. He's not. BK and I have worked very hard to try and find him before. He just likes to give us the slip. This is what leopards are very good at doing. If they don't want you to see them, you won't see them. But this morning is brrr with a capital B. Woo! Hey, BK? We're driving various to see the tracks. And because there's quite a bit of wind and cold wind. Cold front of South Africa. And there's a couple of days. This morning, see if any lions have come on. I've checked an area that they often come in area here.
A warm welcome to all the kids that are tuning in with the show. I know that you have seen already quite a few of the amazing animals. So we're here at andBeyond in Ngala, and with this beautiful sunrise. So I'm Nikki, going to be the guide this morning, and then with me is Owen on the camera. So I wanted to tell you, before I carry on, to tell you what's the plan for this morning. Of course, we just want to apologize for some of the technical issues in that. Of course, we are in the African bush and signal's not always in our favor. However, this is what our plan's going to be. So we are moving into an area where we saw tracks, or Ronan and Sean actually saw tracks of a pride of lions. And so in relation to where the sun is now, so from there on to our right of the screen, so the lion tracks were heading down in that direction. So I think for this morning, we're going to be spending some time and see if there's a chance of finding this pride. We also don't know what happened to them during the evening, if they possibly went out to hunt. Maybe there's a chance they might even be going down to a waterhole to drink. But I think that's going to be a plan for this morning. Now, just while we enjoy that beautiful sunrise, I just want to go through the map of the area, just to show you more or less the plan for this morning and where we are driving as we speak. So if we zoom it in here, so we are currently right over here, more or less, if I had to pinpoint a position. So we're going to be focusing on this area here and see if there's any other signs of the lions. But the general direction that they were moving is they were moving down in this way here. And it could be because of the prevailing wind moving from down here all the way up. And that could be one of the reasons why they're moving down. Of course, if they move into the wind, there's a good chance for hunting opportunities. We'll give that a good go. But if there's no luck there, maybe we'll start heading into this area here and start looking out for some leopard this morning. So all the kids, if you have any questions, please send them through. If you remember the other day we spoke about some of the activities that we can possibly do on an afternoon game drive. Let me know if there's anything that you would be interested in seeing. And let's go out there and see if we can get those lions. So also another interesting treat is we are going to have another ranger that's going to soon join us. His name is Barney, very experienced, been a head ranger for quite a while, and he's going to be joining us this morning to see if we can possibly find those lions. So keep those fingers crossed and hopefully we can get them. So I just want to quickly have a look at something right in front of the vehicle. Katie, I would say I do prefer, from all the drives, I do prefer the afternoon game drive. And I'll tell you why. Oh, Barney, Barney is going to be joining us. This is one of the other rangers that are going to be joining. So Barney, say hello to the camera.
Good morning, everyone. Up and about to look for lions in the African bush. Let's know how it goes. So let's see if we can have any luck this morning.
Thanks. So that's why Barney's joining us. So as we are carrying on this morning, but I would say probably my favorite time of the day would be early mornings, but in the afternoon, I love the afternoon because it goes into this, later on the afternoon, goes into this golden color, and from the golden color, eventually you have this beautiful African sunset, and often there's quite a bit of clouds involved in it as well. So that's probably one of my absolute favorite times of the day. But what I wanted to show, point out to you as I moved around, is the right in front of us on the road. You might notice there's a few little light patches. So we're going to try and see if we can angle the camera so you can see the light patches in the road. So you'll notice, look at the track, and right next to it, you'll notice there's some light tracks on the right. So as the camera is focusing there, I'm going to try and point it out to you. So you might be able to see it from there. Can everyone see there's a little light patch here? Owen, can you see it with the camera? So that light patch here, this is the track of the lions. And the lions, the whole pride was coming down in this direction and started heading off up here. So that's what we're trying to do this morning. So we're going to give it a really hard go and see if we can find this pride of lions. So at least we know they came from here and they're heading down in this direction. But just while we're sitting here, just listen to some of the noises of what's going on around. Because often what we also try and do is when we stop like this, we try and listen out for maybe lions calling. So I think let's just give it another 10 seconds. So while we carry on looking for these lions, we're going to send you back across to Tswalu, because apparently she's found something very interesting up in the tree.
I do have something in a tree, and it's not a bird. It is a baboon. There's a whole troop around us. As soon as they saw us coming, they very, very quickly moved off. These guys can be troublemakers. They raid camps, raid personal belongings. Even though they may look quite cute and peaceful. And there's a couple youngsters in this troop as well. They're all along the tops of the trees around the Mulwati. This is the one we have the best view of. Yes, you. I'm going to be quiet and I want you to see if you can hear them jumping. It's a little difficult with the wind because the wind is also rustling the leaves of the trees. Oh, that looks like that baboon's profile picture. What a nice scene. Oh, we want to climb. Sorry, Davi, to pull you across. One just walked across. They're all around us, but they're hiding at the moment. Now, they can be quite intimidating. Oh, there they run across. Let's see if we'll get more. Let's just be patient. They can be quite intimidating. You don't want to come up against a baboon. Hi Zainat, you'd like to know if when it's so cold we don't see as many animals? Not really, unless unless it's very, very cold and maybe there's frost and things like that. Animals are fine, because remember, animals can't go inside the house when they feel colder. That's because predators can overheat really quickly. Oh, there's some grooming happening. How cool is that? I love to see their hands and the way that their fingers look so much like ours. They are primates, so they have really cool... Oh, hello. I think this is Ndebele. Let me just double check. I have pictures of my hyenas, but I think it's Ndebele. Hello, my friend. Oh, you are definitely one of the cubs. You're way too curious. No, it's not. Might actually be Saka. Let's have a quick look. So I have ID. It is a very clean hyena. I'm quite surprised that the baboons didn't alarm at it. Zach, you'd like to know if there's a difference between a baboon and a monkey. Well, a baboon is a primate. And, I mean, you get old world and new world. So a monkey is also a primate. But baboons seem to have... Can you hear them? Baboons tend to be a little larger. And they have quite a complex social structure. Monkeys also, like I said, they tend to be smaller, and they often use their tails very much as they climb trees and move about in trees. Baboons tend to also spend a lot less time in a tree, like they'll move around on the ground a lot more than monkeys do, but these are subtle differences. It looks like this one has a unibrow. I think they're getting a little used to our presence now. So they're relaxing. But essentially, baboons are just old world monkeys. Hi Tammy, you're 6 years old and you'd like to know why do I speak to the animals like they're my friends? Well, firstly, I don't think that they're not my friends. So it's important to be nice and kind to everybody and everything, regardless of whether you think they're your friend or not. So I try to be kind to all of them. And secondly, if you keep talking, then animals realize that you're not trying to hide from them. If I were a predator or something that was trying to go after an animal, I'd try to be very quiet. Say I was a leopard, I'd try to stalk the animal and be very quiet. I'd try to hide from the animal until I get it, like a leopard does. So if I keep on talking, I can let the animal know that I'm not trying to hide from it, and I'm not being a threat to it. And it's easier or natural to kind of talk to it like it's my friend. These guys are catching some sunlight on the eastern side of those branches. Look at that. Some grooming going on. That's an important way to bond socially. They clean each other. They create friendships, they create bonds, and they create alliances. That is not just a friendship, but maybe a relationship that can actually help you within the troop. Got to get all the areas, you know. If someone else is giving you a clean, got to make sure you do your underarms too. Preferably don't use your mouth. I wonder if they feel very ticklish when this happens. But the face definitely doesn't say I'm feeling ticklish. I think the face says, oh, that's good. Keep on eating the pests off of me. What other awkward position can I do? Hi Trent, that's a really, really good question. You'd like to know why do some animals groom each other and others don't. You'll find that animals that have a quite specialized or complex social structure will groom each other, but not only that. Because remember that hyenas also have a very complex social structure and are highly intelligent. In fact, the intelligence of hyenas are comparable to the intelligence of these baboons, these primates. But they don't groom each other. Adults don't groom each other very much. It may happen occasionally, but it's not something that we see. But then think about lions. Lions do groom each other often, and that's because of bonds, social bonds and relationships. Now, hyenas' hierarchy is openly competitive. That means that anybody can take over at any time if it's got the strength and the capacity and the kind of clan behind it in order to do that. With lions, not so much. So they need to always reaffirm their bonds and show each other that they care about each other equally. With the baboons, it's sort of a bit of a mix. So it is competitive. The alpha male can be ousted. But if he maintains his bonds, or even better, if others maintain their bonds with him, then it means that they will stand in good stead with him. And that's why you find that only animals that, I'm talking about if they groom with the rest of the group, not just their kin or their children, you'll find that animals that need to have good relationships with each other in their group will groom each other. Now you do see it also occasionally with Impala. And there it's a bit of a different story. They allogroom, that's what we call when animals groom each other of the same species in the same group. When they do that, it's a mixture of two things. One, they are in a herd environment, so they do want to make sure that their bonds are still affirmed but it's not complex socially. There it also comes down to the fact that some spots you just can't reach. And if I scratch your back, then you can scratch mine. And sometimes it's just as simple as that, too. Now, I was hoping there would be a leopard in this riverbed, the Mulwati. Although we did get a hyena. Still didn't get which hyena it was, but I'll check. I can remember kind of what it looked like. But if these guys had seen a leopard, they would have been shouting. And when I drove on Twin Dams Road, which is parallel to the Mulwati, I would have heard them shouting if there was a leopard here. I think I see a kudu that's going to walk through just now. It's not sure what these baboons are up to. Come on, mister. Baboons can be ruthless to all assortments of animals. If they get irritated with the kudu, they can run after it and start shouting and hello. Even if the kudu is not a threat to them. So I think that's why he's a little cautious. These are two of the animals that I would love to alarm call. Very, very reliable. But unfortunately, nothing for me today. So I'm going to pop out and send you over to Steve. He's looking at the smaller side of life.
Thanks, Trish. Well, I was about to show boys and girls a little tree there. I was actually going to hug a tree for you. And then I saw something in the distance. And I'm not 100% sure what it was. I think it might have been a buffalo. Binoculars are one of the most important tools as a guide. Binoculars, very, very important. Because our eyes are nowhere near as good as many of the animals. So let me find this animal for you. Where is he gone? There's an impala over there looking. That wasn't what I saw. It was a largish, dark-formed animal. Ah, it is indeed buffaloes. And the buffaloes are all around us. Let's go up to these fellows over here. You hear that buffalo? Sound like it was BK. Tell me when you're happy. Forward a bit. This is probably the same herd we found last night. Just going to slowly try to get into the middle of them. Tell me when you're happy, PK. Now, they were at the watering hole with me last night and they were drinking. And they just went over to the other side and they probably fed a little bit. And they would have what we call bedded down. That's what buffaloes do. They all come together and they all lie down on the ground and they chew the cud, ruminating. There's a little baby. Oh, hello, little one. There's a big bull next to the baby. See, big bull's trying to come to the front to see, like, hey, I'm going to sort you guys out. Whenever there's danger, the buffalo bulls will sort of come to the front and to the sides, and all the babies and the females will disappear in the middle. The big, strong, testosterone-filled bulls will come forward to protect them. Yes. Okay, so we're just going to turn around. Got a couple there in the lovely light. Sue, you want to know if cows and buffaloes can talk to each other? Well, Sue, I think they can, Sue, because when I talk to buffalo, I make a little sound, and they often respond to it. They often go and they go, it's just another cow. But I don't know. They obviously related, so they must speak some form of language that's very similar. They're very serious, aren't they, buffalo? Look at him. That look. That's the classic look that we get from buffaloes when they stop eating and they've still got the grass stuck in their mouth. And everybody says it looks like they're looking at you like you owe them money. It was very funny. Now it's windy. You can probably hear the leaves of the trees moving when it's windy like this. Sorry about the aerial there. When it's windy like this, everybody gets a little bit jumpy. But boys and girls, we hope you've enjoyed your 45 minutes kids drive this morning. Hopefully you will stay on and keep watching. Everybody else, please feel free to send through your questions to #WildEarth, or throw them in on the YouTube chat stream, or use Twitch if you so desire. I'm going to move up just a touch here, BK. We'll get another little look at these buffalo. So it's not necessarily us that's spooking them, it's just the fact that they're a bit spooked because of the wind. Tell me when, buddy? Good. They're a little bit spooked because of the wind. The wind masks the smell, or should I say amplifies the smell of predators, because you don't know where the lions are. It comes from this way, it comes from that way, and the leaves moving is always potentially something trying to stalk up and catch you. You'll notice now here, potentially with us being the danger, these are all bulls that have somehow materialized on the edge. And those guys are doing a little bit of argy-bargy. A little bit of practice. 2 heavyweights. Let me move up their beaks. We might get a better view of them behind that bush. They always just sneak behind the bush, don't they? That's when you try and film them. There we go. Sorry about the bumps. Don't get shy now, my friend. Show us how powerful you are. Sorry about the brakes. I always like to spend time with buffalo. You always have the opportunity or potential for a pride of lions to just materialize. We've just been given an update that the Nkuhumas went onto Elephant Plains yesterday. So after this buffalo, we're going to zoom across over to Simbambili and see if maybe the Nkuhumas are there. That'll be wonderful. Good. Well, let's quickly send you over to andBeyond and Ngala, who seem to have found a very large animal.
So, just after searching for these lions, we came across this big elephant bull. Now, just have a look at the angle of the sun of this elephant. It's such a beautiful color. It's like this golden color. And there's quite a few raisin bushes. So the trees right in front of him is called a raisin bush. And there's quite a few of them around. And he's currently feeding off of them. But if you notice his skin, like at the very front of his head, as well as on towards the back, there's this light little fade or streak of light brown. And that might have been from mud that he would have flicked on himself. It doesn't look too fresh. It might have been from yesterday. But of course, big elephant bulls, early part of the morning is his main objective is to try and get as much food as he possibly can in order to sustain himself. And only later on, as soon as it warms up, he might start heading down to water to go and drink, or maybe even go and splash himself with a bit of water. It's nice and cold this morning, so it won't be early on. It might only be a little bit later. But just looking at the size of his tusks and also his overall size in comparison to those, raisin bushes in front of him, this is quite a big elephant. I would say he's probably close to his 40s, maybe like late 30s, early 40s, just by the general size. I didn't have a good enough look at the tusk, but this is also like often when they get to that age, the older they get, the more solitary, so the more they are just by themselves. There could be other elephants just behind him. I can't see if he might be unmussed or anything. Normally if they're unmussed, they could be by themselves. But I think for him it's just early part of the morning and just enjoying of course, a lot of those raisin bushes, and also maybe a bit of grass at the basis. But I just want to take the opportunity as well, just to show you the landscape. So if I can ask, just to go pan off to the left as well, just so you can see the area that we are currently sitting in and watching this elephant. So it's a beautiful open area. So it's also a good, nice area to be looking out for possibly wild dogs, as well as cheetah. Because cheetah prefer these open areas, as well as if there's a termite mound where they can go and lie on top and use it as a bit of a vantage point. But a beautiful area, and then of course this elephant bull in it. Tom, I can't agree with you more. It is just, the colors are so beautiful, as well as like the way that it's falling onto this elephant. Because especially if you look towards the back now, like I'm going to ask her to see if we can just focus a little bit more towards the rump area of this elephant. You'll notice, just see all the, it looks like quite a lot of wrinkles or big cracks in the skin. Now imagine with an elephant in the African bush, sometimes the temperatures getting as high as mid-40s in the summer, degrees Celsius. So it's pretty warm. So an elephant has to have something that will help them to lose a little bit of heat, especially also if they have quite a thick skin. And those cracks are really nice because you can imagine now, the bigger the more skin, or the biggest surface area for skin, the more they can lose heat. But also if they had to flick mud or water onto themselves, it can go into those little crevices and then slowly cool down. And by doing that, lose quite a bit of heat. So there's a few ways. The big ears, I mean, they can go and swim. There's a lot of behavioral adjustments, but just nice thought with that light on it. You can see the wrinkles quite clearly. But a very graceful animal. As you mentioned earlier, Tom, you can see the way that he's just like moving, and often they'll use their trunk just to maneuver in between the branches of that raisin bush to maybe get some of the lush new growths, or might even go for a bit of the grass, and just so relaxed at the moment. We haven't heard anything around. There's not a lot of birds in the area. I think maybe because it's so open, there's not a lot of areas for the birds to land in. You might just find more of the seed-eating birds that might eventually head this way a bit later on. Oh, as we spoke about a bird, there's actually one that just flew over the elephant. It looked like it's there's two that look like a virtual starling. Now, the starlings often, when the elephants move and they feed, they flush the insects out, and they'll go next. But of course, there might be some other birds that could be gathering closer. Could be something like a drongo, but look, see the starling going to the front of the elephant. So as the elephant is moving and disturbing it, they'll go and catch those insects. Any insect-feeding bird will probably stick quite close to this elephant. Just see with a bit of light, there's quite a bit of shadow over his face, but you can see with the golden colors how his mouth is just moving, the silhouette of his mouth and his trunk as he's like pushing, either could be leaves or a bit of grass into his mouth, or maybe even small branches. Francis, according to my knowledge, they don't really have, I think with elephants they do, because with the symbiotic relationship is that both benefit from it, from a particular relationship. And I think with the elephants there's no real need for them in terms of the other animals, because I mean with elephants they are often called ecological engineers. So they engineer an area where they'll go and dig up water from a riverbed, allowing other animals actually to come and drink. They'll push over trees, and where Ngala would normally not get to the very top branches, or kudu, now they're able to do that whenever they get to the roots. So I would say, from my knowledge, not really that an elephant would be dependent on other animals, but I do know that some animals are very highly dependent on, of course, the way that an elephant would, or maybe let's refer to it as an elephant would have a big impact on the movements and distribution of most animals. And as well as, you can just have a look at this wheel. You can imagine as he's moving and he's feeding and he's breaking, or like opening up some of these raisin bushes, might even open up an area where some of the grazers like zebra or possibly buffalo can now get their heads in to try and get to the grass. Lottie, that's a very interesting question. Like, to be honest with you, I have never seen an oxpecker near an elephant. It's almost like the elephants don't tolerate them at all. And I can also imagine why you can just picture with the elephant, like especially behind the ears, you have all these major veins that run through the ears in order to help cool them down. And the thing with oxpeckers is they eat ticks because they're after the blood. And even if an animal has a big wound, they'll go and clean the wound. And so by doing that, it actually helps to heal. But I've just noticed with elephants, not also. I think maybe because of those, I mean, this is just my personal opinion, with those big veins, and as soon as they would puncture that, or as soon as they would try and open that up, especially going after ticks and that, it might be that there could be, I don't know, maybe lose quite a bit of blood. But it's not, I mean, this is just my whole opinion about it. I'm not too sure. I just always seen them never tolerating them. As soon as an oxpecker gets close, you'll see the elephant actually just flick the ears and then they move off. So it'd be interesting now, and I would love to know if any of the viewers have any idea, or would love to drop a little comment of what they think, why the oxpeckers won't necessarily sit on an elephant. I think while we're still trying to figure out that question with the oxpeckers, and I'm sure I'll go and do a bit more research about it and see if we can let everyone know about this afternoon. But while we do that, apparently Steve has some oxpeckers on buffaloes. So let's send you across to him.
Welcome back. Well, we're at Buffelshoek Dam again, as we were last night. And there is an enormous buffalo herd on their way here. Basically, we left that herd and we've been coming all the way towards Buffelshoek watering hole, and there's been buffalo the entire way. I'm sure we'll find oxpeckers. It's a little bit cold this morning. The birds are a bit inactive, but there were plenty of oxpeckers yesterday. And we're going to be patient and sit here. The herd is huge. I have never seen oxpeckers on elephants. Elephants are very accurate with that trunk, and they're able to flick at them and hit them. And an oxpecker that gets flicked by an elephant's trunk is going to be a flat oxpecker. There's some very angry elephants. I think we're going to go check that out. Those elephants are very angry. We're going to come back. This herd is going to be returning. So I hope you don't mind if we just leave for a bit and we'll come back. But there's a herd of elephant directly over that way that are shouting and shouting and shouting. Proper screams. It's possible that the Talamati or the Tortured Pride is nearby following this buffalo herd. It's just too much, too enticing. Which way am I going to go? I'm going to go this way. Very good. Well, while we try and figure out what's going on with these elephants, let's go back over to andBeyond. Phinda, they've caught up with some fast cats.
Welcome back to andBeyond, Phinda Private Game Reserve, everyone. We unfortunately could not keep up with those lions. They disappeared up into the mountains, up into the rocks, and we just couldn't keep up. They were too fast, too agile, moving over those rocks. So we've carried on with our morning, headed down into the southern plains of the reserve, and one of the other vehicles has managed to find these two beautiful male cheetah. Have a look at that. So, I don't know if any of you were watching a couple of days ago. We were following those two male cheetah hunting through the woodlands, and we watched them almost catch some impala, or try to stalk some impala. These are the same two brothers. And look at how they're sitting nice and tight together, scanning over the grasslands, looking for any signs of potential prey. And like I was saying, it's a very, very, very chilly morning this morning. Marcel and myself have been comparing the amount of feeling that we have in our fingers. How are your hands doing, Marcel?
Yeah, in the sun now is good.
Yeah, I was going to say, Just imagine on such a cold morning, I'm sure, and many of you at home have had the same thing. Sitting in the sun on a chilly morning is just absolute bliss. And that looks like what these cheetah are feeling right now. Look at how they kind of puffed up a little bit, looking very cozy in the sun on their termite mound. And with those fantastic eyes of theirs, just scanning over these plains, they'll be able to spot any potential prey, any potential danger. I don't know if any of you have ever seen what a cheetah's skull actually looks like, but it's got massive eye sockets for the size of its skull. An adaptation for these open plains, for using their eyesight to scan into the distance, exactly like these two cheetah are doing now. And just that little bit of added elevation on that termite mound there, just a big help in terms of being able to spot things. Look how comfy he looks, getting his belly exposed to the sun. Rivka, you're asking what allows cheetah to run so much faster than other big cats. I'm going to get my book out to show you, Rivka. So let's have a look at this diagram here. And we'll have a look at the physiology. Or in fact, we can even use the cheetah that are in front of us for now, and then I'll show you in the book afterwards. But have a look at how, firstly, how long their legs are in relation to their body. Remember those lions we saw this morning? They're built much more kind of muscularly, much more stocky, and these cheetah are much more kind of lanky, but still super strong. So every ounce of meat on this cheetah is basically just there to enable it to run as fast as possible. There's not a scrap of kind of unused space, or not a scrap of muscle that's on that body that shouldn't be there. It's about being as light as possible, but being as efficient as possible in terms of their strength to body weight ratio and their musculature and stuff. Then also look at how their head. The head is very small in relation to their body, again, to minimize weight and minimize drag. They've got a super muscular back that allows their spine to flex as they stride. And then to facilitate running at high speeds, they've got their paws. I don't know if Marcel can zoom in on that paw now that it's facing towards us. And we spoke a bit about this the other day. They've got, I don't know if you can see the claws sticking out the front of the toes there. Normally with other big cats, with lions and leopards, typically when they walk around, those claws are sheathed. These cheetah are not able to do that, so their claws are pretty much permanently protracted. And then sharp edges on the outsides of the paws as well to allow them a bit of grip as they run. So I think, let me quickly show you while they're lying there. So here's the differences between the two. Marcel can just pan across to the book over here. So there's the cheetah. See, very slim. Look at how that belly tucks almost like a greyhound's tummy. Very small head in relation to the body. And like I was saying, not a scrap of excess meat and muscle on this body. Every little bit of muscle there is just designed for running at high speed. Big muscles around the back legs there to help them push off. And we'll compare that to the lion and the leopard. So there's a lion and there's a leopard. See how much shorter their legs are in relation to their body size. So much more kind of stocky and thick built. So although they can run fast, they can't run as fast, and it's only over a very short distance that they're explosive. Okay, while we enjoy our cheetah, we're going to send you across to... Oh, let's just see what he does. I think he's just moving around the termite mound, just repositioning and trying to get some better sunlight. We're going to stick with these cheetah and see what they get up to, and we'll call you back if they do start to move around. In the meantime, though, we'll send you across to Taylor, who's got a stocky bird in a tree. Welcome back, everyone. Very sorry about those technical difficulties. We are out in the middle of the African bush, and it can be quite tough sometimes to keep the signal strong and to keep everything working perfectly. But we're still with these two cheetah, and they now have curled up and it seems gone to sleep. But see how even though the one is sleeping, see how the one on the right has his head down and seems to be enjoying a bit of a sound sleep. His brother is a bit more alert, and he's scanning around from his little termite mound looking to see what he can spot. And we said this morning that those lions we were were watching them as they were moving through the woodlands looking for potential prey. And we said that in the early hours of the morning, when it was nice and cool, that's when they would want to be getting their hunting done. And as most predators are, lions are opportunists, so it doesn't mean that they'll only hunt early in the morning. It's the same with these cheetah. Now, if they'd come across something earlier this morning or now, they would probably take the opportunity. But for these cheetah, it almost makes more sense for them to wait for the day to go on a little bit before they start to hunt, because they're the smallest of the large predators. We were discussing how skinny and how slender and slim they are compared to the stocky leopard and lion. That makes them kind of the weakest, or puts them at the bottom of the food chain in terms of the large predators here in Africa. Oh, look. So we'll come back to what I was saying now, but a question from James. You're asking if male and female cheetah run at different speeds because of their anatomy. And you're very correct, James, in that males are quite a bit bigger and more, or they're just bigger than females. And in the research that I've done, James, comparing the different speeds, they're kind of about the same. So although the males are bigger and more muscular, I suppose more muscles mean that they can run faster, but more muscles also mean more body weight. Then looking at a female that's smaller, more slender, or lighter, although she's got less muscles, she's kind of still lighter. And so the research papers that I've read found that they run at about the same speed. Oh, looking straight at us. How beautiful that is. Oh, I don't know, Marcel, if you can just zoom in onto his face while he's looking at us like that. Let's have a look, everyone. I'm going to use my binoculars. And of course, you guys have got the luxury of the zoom on the camera to do this. But we'll just wait and see if he looks back at us. This is that male we were looking at the other day with the big scars on his face. We'll see if he looks back at us, but for now, I'm not interested. While we wait for him to do that, though, we'll go back to discussing how, because these cheetah are, like we said, the bottom of the pecking order in terms of the large carnivores in Africa, they'll often hunt at times, especially mothers with cubs, they'll hunt at times where the chances of them having to defend their or interacting with larger carnivores over a carcass is less. So because hyenas and leopards and lions tend to be more nocturnal in terms of their hunting habits, often find that cheetah, like I said, especially mothers with cubs, will hunt later in the morning or even in the middle of the day when other predators are resting in the shade. And that just helps them to avoid that competition. It will allow them a better opportunity to keep their kill if they are successful in their hunt. There you go. Look at him standing up. Look at how skinny that belly is. Remember I was talking about that greyhound-like belly, how the tummy kind of tucks in at the pelvis there. And just looking at their tummies, it does look like they are in need of some food. They don't look like they're starving or desperate, but if they do come across an opportunity, I think they will definitely try and take it. Ellie Girl, you're asking if these cheetah would hunt a warthog. Ellie Girl, maybe a warthog piglet or a very young warthog, but a big adult warthog is quite a tough animal to catch, and it's going to require strength to catch it and kill it. And although these cheetah are very fast, they haven't got the same kind of wrestling strength that a leopard or a lion would have. They also, because a cheetah kills by strangling its prey, it will grab it by the throat and then asphyxiate it by holding onto the windpipe. A warthog's got a very thick neck, illegal, and it's almost too thick for a cheetah to get its mouth around. And then, of course, there's the warthog's tusks that will make it quite dangerous for these cheetah to try and tackle a warthog. So a warthog piglet, maybe yes, but unlikely that they'll go for an adult. Funny enough, on this exact plain where these cheetah are sitting, I've watched these two cheetah trying to catch warthog piglets and then gotten chased away by the mother. Fish with Andy, you're asking if a female cheetah will have a tighter turning circle than a male. Fish with Andy, to be honest, I've never read anything about that, and I've never even thought about that, to be honest. I haven't come across any research about that, but I don't imagine it will be. I don't imagine that it will be too different. I think again, the two playing fields kind of level themselves out. With the male being slightly more muscular and the female being slightly more slender. But that turning circle comes down to that tail, Fish with Andy. So I don't know if Marcel can just zoom in onto that tail that keeps flicking up on that male that's sitting up on the termite mound there. And they've got a very, although it's tough to see now that it's kind of facing kind of top towards us. If we look at it from a side-on perspective, a cheetah's got a very flat, almost paddle-like tail. And that's to help with steering and turning circles when chasing their prey. Because, of course, their prey know that they'll be outrun by the cheetah if they run in a straight line. And so they'll kind of jink and sidestep and dip and duck and dive when being chased by a cheetah.
From a physics point of view, it should have less resistance to change in direction, but I don't think it's large enough to make a difference.
Alright, we're going to sit with these cheetah for a bit longer, and we're going to see what they get up to. Again, we'll let you know if anything changes. In the meantime, though, we'll send you across to Ngala, where I believe they've got some zebra.
So just after the beautiful elephant, we found my absolute favorite animal, a whole dazzle or herd of zebra. And just look at the beautiful colors, especially with the sunlight on them at the moment. You'll even notice there was one right in front of us, that little bit of hair around the mouth and the nose, how it's all lightened up by the sunlight. And of course that beautiful mohawk that runs from between the ears all the way back to just between the shoulder blades. Oh, there's a little oxpecker on the back. So remember earlier we said about the oxpeckers on the buffaloes and possibly why they're not on the elephants. But you can see with this oxpecker, the zebras don't mind them because they basically can get all the ticks that they would normally not be able to rub off or be able to get to. So around the ears, sometimes you'll even see them trying to push their heads into the zebra's ears to try and get to the ticks. But also just looking at this whole herd. So this is also the area where we are looking out for the lion tracks, and they do look very relaxed. So I think they might not have seen any of the lions or heard them, because I think if they did, they would have been a bit more alert than they are now. But just look at the... So one of my favorite things, the reason why zebra is my favorite animal, is if you look at the mane, you see how the stripes run from the neck into that hair on top of the back. How it's black and then it goes as black, and when it's white it goes into white. And then of course the stripes, so from the nose, you'll notice the nose is like black, and then you'll see all the stripes that run basically vertical up the head, and that down towards the back start going in more of a horizontal design. But look at this one's back, even very mottled, and every single zebra has a different stripe pattern, so everyone would be unique. Oh, it's time for them to move off. And I wonder if they heard something. There was some Franklin's alarm calling, and the whole herd decided to move off from here. Now it would be interesting to know, maybe it could be a sign that the lions might be near the area. Could be maybe just a different sign for them saying, come on, let's go, the walk trail's still far, we need to get there, let's go. All right, but I think while they disappear in the distance, I think for now, let's carry on with our drive and see if there's any other tracks or signs of these lions. So Rowan, Sean and Barney are working very hard this morning to try and see if we can find these lions. I'm hoping for our part and for their part that we do find them. So let's carry on. All right, so while we're carrying on, going to look for some lions and possibly whatever else we can find. We're going to send you back to Damon at andBeyond Phinda with some cheetah. Now apparently the cheetah have gone and laid down, so let's go and have a look.
Indeed, these two cheetah are still lying flat and fast asleep, but oh, you guys have joined us just at the right time. So I was just saying to Marcel that I could see some wildebeest and just down the hill, and it looks like their heads are all down and they're busy grazing, and that's what that male cheetah has just noticed now. Look at that. See how he stood up? Now sitting up and staring in their direction. Now, we've just been speaking about these cheetah hunting and speaking about how they'll be looking for food and how empty their bellies look. And just like that, these wildebeest have just come grazing out of the dry riverbed up onto the hillside here. All of their heads are down. And look at how this cheetah is now scanning around, looking for his best route to get towards the wildebeest, looking to make sure there aren't any other animals around. And what he'll do now is he'll stare quite fixedly into that herd, looking to see if he can identify if there's maybe a weak looking wildebeest. Maybe one's got a broken or injured leg. Maybe there's a youngster that will be easier for him and his brother to catch. And we were speaking about warthogs and how a warthog would be quite a dangerous animal for these cheetah to tackle. Much the same with a wildebeest. So an animal that's much bigger than this cheetah is, and of course it's got those big sharp horns. And him and his brother together would definitely be able to take a wildebeest down. Their combined strength and weight would probably be enough to overpower a wildebeest. It would still be a titanic struggle. And that would be another advantage of, these two cheetah being together, two brothers being able to tackle larger animals than, say, a female by herself. See how he's not rushing into this. He's watching very carefully. These two cheetah being quite old. I don't know if you can see on the backs of his ears how tattered his ears look. Quite an old cheetah, him and his brother, both of them quite old. So they've got a lot of experience with hunting. And so they'll know that it's best to analyze the situation properly before they launch into a hunt. So he's just getting a better idea of the lay of the land, looking for the best cover, and then identifying his target. I don't think his brother's even noticed. He's still asleep. Just the one male still looking. Nigel, it will depend on the area and will depend on the cover. But in an open space like this, if this cheetah can get to within about 30 meters or so, he'll be pretty confident. But I've even seen with these two male cheetah before, Nigel. That's why I say there's no kind of hard, fast rule or exact number. Typically, the more open it is, the more likely it is that the cheetah will be detected in their stalk. Oh, he's obviously lost interest now. Maybe decided that this is not an opportunity that they want to take, or maybe decided that it's a bit too cold for hunting for the time being. But I've seen these cheetah before, in fact, in a very similar situation to this, where it was also with a herd of wildebeest, where they saw these wildebeest from far away, and they were maybe 200, maybe 150, maybe 200 meters away from them, and they started to run towards them, not full speed, just trotting towards them, closing the gap, almost like they wanted the wildebeest to run from them. These cheetah being so fast, they knew that they could easily outpace a wildebeest. But it was almost like it was a tactical ploy, like they wanted the wildebeest to scatter so that they could look for a calf, a young wildebeest in the herd. And their tactic did work, and they were able to separate the herd enough to the extent that they could spot a youngster, and that was the one that they ended up singling out and trying to catch. But obviously the closer they get, the shorter the chase is likely to be and the less amount of energy they'll expend. So it's kind of a trade-off. Do we start from far away and waste energy running up to the animal and then give the animal a head start? Because of course as soon as they start running they're going to be more likely to be spotted. Or do they stalk as close as they can, and then if they are able to surprise the animal, the chase will likely be shorter, but the closer you stalk, the more likely you are to be detected. So there's a bit of a trade-off. Now, those wildebeest have lifted their heads, and the one is looking, or was looking in our direction, but has now put his head down. Roz, you're asking if a pregnant female cheetah will run slower than normal. Roz, again, I haven't come across any research about that, but speaking from, I suppose, just kind of to unpack the question, with that extra weight on her body, I suppose her power to weight ratio will be disrupted somewhat, and so she may run a little bit slower. That being said, cheetah very seldom are able to actually get up to the top speed that they're capable of in a hunt, purely because of what we were discussing earlier, how the prey will never run exactly in a straight line. And for a cheetah to get up to its full speed, it's going to have to be running in a straight line, basically. So I don't think, so being pregnant, yes, it might slow her down slightly, but I don't think it will affect her hunt too much, based on the fact that she's not going to get up to her top speed in a hunt because of that having to zigzag, chasing her kind of prey that's trying to sidestep and get away from her. There may also be a degree of her not wanting to potentially damage the unborn babies in her womb, and not wanting to put in that extra bit of effort. But while we watch what unfolds here with this hunt, or this hopefully it unfolds into a hunt, we're going to send you across to some buffalo.
And you're back again with us at Buffelshoek. We did a huge loop. We found a very angry young elephant calf. PK, get these oxpeckers on. This one's back coming down. There's some yellow bill there. There's a red and a yellow billed on the same buffalo. How awesome is that? And a juvenile on the left. There's a yellow billed oxpecker. And there was a red billed and a youngster. Well, it's almost impossible to tell the difference between a red and yellow billed youngster. They look identical, I think. There might be a slight change. The youngsters have got the dark beak, and the adult yellow billed has got half red, half yellow, and the red billed has got a full red beak. Now, the elephants have continued to make noise. The buffalo herd is enormous. They've been stampeding, they've been running. We're trying to figure out what's causing them all of this negativity. And I'm almost certain it's because of the wind. The wind makes things very difficult for these animals. They're making lots of noises as well. We did find tracks of a male leopard coming in behind the buffalo towards the cut line there, but there's so many buffalo tracks, the leopard tracks got swallowed up. So we're just going to keep listening. Tingana is a leopard that's been hanging out in the north here, and he loves to follow him some buffalo. I've seen him do it for a very long period of time. Even his son, Osana, used to chase buffalo around all the time. Oh, there's some wonderful noises going on there. And if you don't know who Osana is, I actually recently posted an old picture of him. Trying to catch up on photos of the past. Okay, I'm going to move, BK. There's something going on in the block here that we need to go and investigate. Lots of noises, buffalo bellows, and it's all worth. I think a lot of it's to do with the wind, but I also think that possibly the tracks of that male leopard, they weren't there yesterday because I checked, have caused these buffalo a whole world of craziness. They've all got into this block, elephants included. We found at least 3 herds and 1 female that was really not happy with life. Now, it's very important when you come across a female elephant like that that's going crazy to just switch off and not cause her any reason. Something known as not happy. The head is up, the tail is stiff and up. Elephants look down their nose, and this seems to be the same female we saw before. She's not liking the buffalo. Seems to be chasing the buffalo around, but I am almost certain that there's some predator smell that's gotten into her very strong nostrils. Okay, well, we're going to try to figure out what's going on over here. Seems like we're losing some signal, so let's send you back over to andBeyond Phinda with their cheetah.
From some unsettled buffalo and elephants to some very settled cheetah, these 2 brothers are still resting up on their little termite mound. And I don't know if you can see that wildebeest just behind the cheetah there, how it's kind of looking in our direction. And I wonder if it hasn't maybe just picked up the movement of the flicking tail of this cheetah that's up on the termite mound. Of course, that wildebeest, while it was grazing, was always on the lookout for just the slightest sign of potential danger. Oh, look at that. Look how he's stretching. Those claws sticking out. Yeah, and I think the excitement that we felt when that cheetah first spotted that wildebeest, I'm not very optimistic now looking at their body language. They don't seem to be very interested in those wildebeest anymore. Obviously just deciding that it's not worth their while. But how comfortable does that cheetah look up on that hill there? Just soaking up the sun. Christy, you're asking if cheetah will ever form coalitions with unrelated males. Christy, it's not the norm. So typically, I'm sure you've heard, just based on your question, I'm sure you've heard that normally coalitions like this are brothers. From the same litter, born at the same time, that will then go away from their mother when they go independent together, and then they'll stay together for the rest of their life. And that could be 2, 3, 4 males, depending on how many there are in the litter. There have been recorded cases, though, of where an unrelated male has joined up with 2 related males, or even more, to make a coalition. But now that is the exception rather than the norm, but it's not unheard of. So that male on the right, who has been the one that's been most asleep, I don't know if you saw now how he just lifted his head and looked off into the distance. So I'm just looking behind us to see if I can see what he saw. I can't. His eyes are much better than mine, though, of course. But obviously, whatever it was not of any interest to him. So we were speaking about that tail of theirs, and now a bit easier to see, but again, still unfortunately from the wrong side. Just see how that little tail tip keeps twitching. That doesn't look very comfortable. Look how his front legs are almost just sticking out stiff, straight off the top of the termite now. I don't know if any of you have got dogs or cats at home that sleep with their front legs locked out like that.
I used to have a dog that slept on his back, legs straight into the air.
There we go. So every now and then when he flicks that tail, see how broad and wide it is. That's exactly what we were talking about earlier, with that rudder shape. Well, again though, his cheetah not really getting up to too much for the time being. So we're going to send you across to Pride Lands, to Taylor, who's got an elephant.
Let's try this again. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pridelands. Second time lucky. Hopefully that you can all hear me now. We've managed to find some big mammals. We've been trying to show you birds all morning, but we've had no luck. But it seems to be changing, which is fantastic. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Gert. And like I said, we are here at Pridelands with Eco Training, and we're just watching these elephant bulls as they go about their day. I don't know if we've seen these fellas before. Remember, with the males, they just roam around as they please, but this is quite a large elephant bull. And he's got a few young companions moving around with him. He's actually so fat, he looks like he's pregnant. Look at how his stomach is distended on the sides. Nowhere near as big as that elephant bull that we saw yesterday, Ezulwini, but definitely on his way. He's actually really got quite a big body. And also very relaxed, very calm. Hi, big boy. Just acknowledging that we are here. I always talk to the elephants. I always say that it makes me feel a lot calmer around them, even though he's very relaxed. Off he goes. And they're feeding around this little rocky outcrop here, and there's lots of fig trees and other delicious plants that maybe they don't always get to eat. It was feeding on one of the fig trees. He had his head stuck into it. You can kind of see it just above this big elephant bull. That's the tree that I was talking about. I wonder if he'll also go up and taste it. I've actually made a tea from a large leafed rock fig leaves before. It's interesting tasting. I don't know if I would have it again, but it wasn't too bad. Probably hear him nicely as he tears into all the vegetation. Safari lover, I don't think wild animals could really suffer from obesity. Nature doesn't really allow for it. They're constantly on the go, burning calories, eating only as much as they can. And we talk about the ecosystem in this area. It's quite a harsh one, because through the months of April, May, June, July, August, we don't see any rain at all. So the vegetation loses a lot of its nutrients. And that's quite sort of taxing on the animals. You definitely see their conditions change through the seasons. And elephants are moving. In one day, it's not uncommon for an elephant to travel up to 50 kilometers. They could probably travel more if they really wanted to, but it's probably a bit less than that. So they're constantly on the go. And then lions, if you talk about predators, their digestive systems are designed so that, they gorge themselves with as much as they can eat in one go if they, catch whatever prey species that is, and then they balloon. Their stomachs are enormous, and they do look like they're obese, but then within a couple of days, that sort of stomach subsides, and, they're not eating every day. If a lion ate a buffalo every single day, there'd be a bit of a problem. They'd be, very fat all the time. They probably wouldn't be moving around a lot, but that doesn't happen because their prey species also need to move around to look for better grazing or browsing. So no, I don't think necessarily out in the wild, but if you see captive animals, then yes. And I think that's purely because they're not getting the amount of exercise that they normally would, whether it's patrolling territories or just actually out searching for something to eat. And you know how exhausting it must be for a lion or a leopard or a cheetah to try and catch its prey and then be unsuccessful most of the time. It normally takes a couple of attempts. It's obviously a lot easier for something like an elephant or a zebra or a buffalo to find food. But then again, that nutrition starts to lack in the drier seasons, and then they don't look as healthy. Although the buffalo we've been seeing look very, very fat and very lovely. Tailor-made, that's a good question. Which digestive system of the animals is most similar to humans? It would probably have to be that of monkey, I would imagine. Any of the primates would probably be closest to ours. I don't think elephants, and of course they've got a much different digestive system. Oh, there goes a tree. Hang on. Elephant has just had a branch fall on its head. I think you might have heard the big crack. And was so shocked. Look there we go. Look at the branch that it's now got. Are you trying to put it back onto the tree? What are you doing? To the right? There we go. Oh, you just caught the end of that. That was so funny. That huge branch fell on top of the elephant. I mean, it pulled it down on itself, and I'm sure it's okay. But then he was kind of entangled in it. That was quite interesting. Sorry, TaylorMade. So yeah, I'm not sure what the absorption rate of nutrition for humans is. And I think because of all the processed foods that we eat, our body might take a little bit longer to digest those types of things than if we were just out foraging and eating berries and harvesting our own vegetables and eat small amounts of meat. So I'm not sure. I don't think it would be not anything like a ruminant. We don't have 4 chambers in our stomach. So probably something more like the primates. Imagine how big I don't know. It'd be nice to only digest 40% of our food. Can you imagine? I'd be so happy. I'd be at a buffet all day long. Whole day. But that's quite a artistic shot, the way that you framed that hat with all the marula tree and knob thorns intertwining. Patricia, now, so ruminants don't have 4 stomachs. They've got 4 chambers within one stomach. So that is a common mistake that is sort of made. You often hear people talking about ruminants that have 4 stomachs. It's not. So it's still the stomach. Each chamber within it plays a different role, however. And, each part is used for a different portion of the digestion of a ruminant. Sorry, I've just found a spider. Come up on my hand, please. No, I've been trying to show you all jumping spiders. I'm going to try and catch it. I had a zebra jumping spider living in the car, which is a beautiful black and white one, but it's no longer here. Okay, no, I've lost the spider. Little vehicle forever. I'm going to be wrapped in a web one. Very calmly. And I love watching elephants and how each individual is looking for something different to eat. One looks like it's feeding on, what is that, a raisin of sort, potentially. And then often when you hear branches breaking, you'll see younger elephants rush on into the tree where, they might not be able to reach the tall branches and break them off and feed on those luscious leaves. But that didn't happen today. Everyone's quite happy. Oh, you actually pulled out the entire plant. You're not eating the leaves at all. You're going to eat the bark. Very nice. Limp Rimble, I would imagine that elephants can indeed breathe through their mouths. I think they can breathe through their trunks and they can breathe through their mouths, but I think they rely heavily on breathing through their trunks. The reason why I say this is because whenever vets and things dart elephants, they always have to put a little stick between their 2 little finger-like tips at the edge of their trunk, but now, yeah, they must. Too. I remember seeing an elephant, and I think I've told some of you the story a long time ago, but essentially when I was down working at Sabi, there was this elephant cow that we heard, and she lost at least more than, and she made interesting sounds, and it didn't sound like actually coming from the trunk. It sounded like it was maybe coming from their mouth. I need to double check that. For some bizarre reason, I'm like, can they actually breathe through their mouth? No, I don't know. And they must be able to. I mean, they can surely think like us. They breathe through their nose most of the time, and maybe out through their mouth. So you can hear a ring tone there. So I just had to answer the phone again to the directors. Yes, like I said, I would imagine that they'd definitely be able to breathe through their mouth. What happens if they got a blocked trunk? Then what? Nah, definitely. And like I say, you see so many animals with these injuries on their trunks, and that must inhibit their breathing through their trunks to some degree. Like that female, she made these really weird rumbling sounds when she breathed. It was almost like she was breathing only through her mouth and not through her trunk at all. It was actually very sad. But she carried on. She's fine, and she's probably still alive to this day, down in the southern sections of the Sabi sand. But it's been very quiet on the reserve. The last night was busy. There were lots of lions roaring, so we were trying to follow up on lions. We think the one lioness that's hanging around on her own. But she was in, we pinned out which block between the roads that she's in. But it's so dense in there. We didn't manage to follow male lions, but no luck, unfortunately. And I also checked for Ezulwini, but I couldn't find him. So I don't know if he's gone north into Jajani now, which is another reserve just out of our traverse. So we've just found this small group of elephants. But I think we'll head down towards the Ndlovu Dam, which is at Eco Trading Camp, and see if anything is around there. And perhaps we'll find some more animals heading down for a drink. Wonderful. Well, we're going to go back across to Phinda and the lovely Cheetah.
Welcome back. As you can see, the cheetah haven't moved too much since you were last here with us. And this herd of wildebeest is still grazing tantalizingly close to them. It'll be quite interesting to see what happens if they do graze all the way up to the cheetah and they don't spot them, to see what transpires. This male on the left, still up on his lofty perch and still looking around, kind of drifting in and out of sleep. And still looking very comfy in the lovely warm morning light. And like I was saying earlier, just the most perfect vantage point for them to be at the moment. Have a bit of open space to rest in the sunlight and keep warm, but then also keep an eye out on the things going on around them. Just have a look at that male on the left, at his back. Now, we spoke about how muscular it was to enable this cheetah to run at the incredible speeds that he can run at. But also have a look at the colours, how beautiful and rich that orangey golden coat is. And those beautiful round spots. And then look at his face, those black tear marks that come down from his eyes towards his mouth. Now, I don't know if any of you are American football fans. You may have seen how some players will put those black stripes under their eyes, and how it's supposed to help with glare. And we spoke about how these cheetah have got very big eyes for the size of their bodies to enable them to scan over the open plains. And we also spoke about how these cheetah will often hunt more during the daytime than some of the other large predators on average. And being out here in the open grasslands where there often isn't much shade, being exposed to the intense light of the sun, it's thought that those black lines in front of the eyes help a little bit with that. Help to reduce the glare going into the eye so that these cheetah can still be effective in the heat of the day when they'll be wanting to be hunting to avoid competition with other predators. Margaret, you're asking if animals go into deep sleep like REM or rapid eye movement sleep, as is so important in our lives as humans. Margaret, animals do, yes, but for varying degrees of time and for different lengths of time. So, for example, these cheetah, I'm sure as you've been watching, see how the one on the right is a bit of an exception to the rule, because he seems to have been sleeping pretty deeply for the last little while. But on average, when a cheetah sleeps, it's a bit more like the one on the left. They don't tend to close their eyes for very long. They'll close their eyes for a bit and then wake up and then look around and then back to sleep. So they sleep very lightly. And so then I would imagine that for them, the REM sleep doesn't happen very long, for very long periods. Things like elephants, they only get a few hours of REM sleep every couple of days. Something like a lion that spends, the better part of the day, perhaps 20 hours of a day fast asleep, they would probably get a lot more REM sleep, and they tend to sleep a lot deeper. I don't know if you remember, I think it was on Sunday night when we were watching that male lion sleeping after having fed on that giraffe carcass, and we said that he was so fast asleep that an elephant trumpeting didn't wake him up, and a Ngala almost walking over him didn't wake him up. It was only when a rhino nearly stood on his tail that he actually woke up. So he must have been in a very, very deep sleep. But yeah, for these cheetah, typically with animals that are more vulnerable to predation, will tend to have less REM sleep or less deep sleep. And that's why these cheetah have to kind of keep lifting their heads and looking around, just because of their vulnerability to other predators. And often if you watch a lone cheetah by itself, it can be quite distressing to watch because they look like they are perpetually on edge. And there'll be a slight little rustle in the grass and it will jump up and panic and run around and look around, and turns out it was just a mouse or a little button quail or something. But we've seen it a few times with coalitions of males like this, where there's a couple of them together or two of them together, two big strong males, and often one, if not both, will go into a deep sleep like the one on the right is doing now. And I wonder if that's not just because of that extra added security that they feel. You know, having a second set of eyes, and another pair of ears, another set of nostrils, just to help you keep a lookout for danger. You very seldom see that kind of behavior from a female with cubs or from a lone cheetah. Dolphin, you're asking if some animals in the bush turn off half of their brains when they go to sleep. Dolphin, I haven't done... Oh, so you say like dolphins. Dolphin, I haven't done any research on that. And so, to be honest, I don't know. What I have seen, though, or what I have heard of before, is how... I imagine that dolphins are able to do that so that they're able to still swim and come up to breathe while they're resting. And I've heard that hippos have a similar capability. While they sleep, standing in a waterhole, that they kind of lift their heads up subconsciously and are then able to take a breath. I think with the case of these cheetah, I don't think that it is that they're switching off half of their brains. I think they're just dozing in and out, or coming in and out of consciousness rapidly. So sleep for a few minutes, wake up, look around. I suppose just sleeping lightly. And I was getting so hopeful. That male on the left, there was a good stretch of time there where he had his head up. But now, with his head back down and still looking pretty lazy, I think we'll send you across to Ngala, where I believe Nikki's got some Wildebeest and Impala to show you.
So in our pursuit of these lions, we found this big bachelor herd of Impala and 2 male wildebeest with them. So basically it's a big herd of just bachelors. And I think you can just imagine with them being all by themselves, of course there's safety in numbers. The more eyes, the more ears, the safer they feel. But if you notice, I mean, even with the wildebeest, so even though they're not of the same species, they'll stick together because of, as we mentioned, that safety in numbers. And even though it's a different species, it doesn't matter because at least there's more ears, more eyes, and of course more noses just to pick up any form of danger. Now earlier on there was a bit of snorting that was happening, and that was from some of these Impala, but you can see the wildebeest just carefully scanning around to see if there's any danger in the area. And I think they also might be together because basically the tracks of the lions that we had earlier were heading down in this direction where they are now, but you can see they're pretty close together. So I don't know if they might have heard them during the evening, or maybe even because of the wind they might have smelt them, and that's why all of them are back together here. It might also be not even because of the lions, it's just because they it was during the evening. They could have come into this open area, all the males together, and at least with all the eyes and ears that are there, kept them safe during the evening. See a few of the young males actually just chasing each other, probably just establishing dominance amongst themselves. You'll see some of the bigger males are just following these youngsters, actually just pushing them a bit. even look at the sky in the back. So it is starting to warm up quite a bit now, which is nice. I mean, even with some of the Impala, you'll see some look like they are a bit of a different color to the others. So some look... so I would just like to ask, and so see those ones that are currently near that fallen over tree there, that fallen stump, the one that's moving up on the hill. You'll notice that some look like they have a bit of a darker color. So as they puff themselves up in order to try and get rid of or try to fight the cold, they have this very dark reddish color. But then of course, once they start lowering their hair, they have more of a lighter color. Like possibly that one, see that one, how much darker it is? Now compare that against, see how they're just starting to chase one another. So that's just basically them establishing dominance. It's like, hey, listen, I'm more dominant than you, and if you don't back off, I'm going to fight you. And then they move off. Okay, that's with wildebeest, you could find them, of course, with big herds or bachelor herds of Impala like this, but you can also find them with a whole herd of zebra, or even with, as you mentioned earlier, with the possibility of finding them with a breeding herd of Impala. So basically any animal that they can join up with, of course, that won't be any potential danger to them, is they'll join up because of the safety numbers. You often find with zebra, they'll join up with giraffes because of the, with the giraffes having, of course, those long necks with quite a good view of what's going on around them, probably the best eyesight in the bush. And so they'll stick together where... Pretty much, I think with what's happened here, so these bulls that are here, these wildebeest bulls are probably the ones that are more or less in this area. I don't think they are very dominant because often the dominant bulls are a little bit bigger than they are, and they'll be by themselves. And I think these two are probably just youngish bulls that are probably soon going to establish their territory, but because of that they are together. And then of course with the Impala just being in this area, they all decided to join up. But you could find them with potentially any other of the more common species, or some of the herbivores, and you might find them with a herd. You might find them joining up with zebra, even giraffes, as long as it's not, of course, not a potential predator to them. But it's so nice to see them and just spend some time, because often with Impala, I think it's such a beautiful antelope. It's probably one of the most beautiful in the bush, and it's, of course, sometimes been overlooked because it's such a common animal. But if you look at the ears, look at the very dark tip at the end of the ears, you'll notice quite long eyelashes and this white patch on the throat and on the mouth. And of course, if you look at the colors of them, they have this very dark reddish color on the top, bit of a lighter brown. Oh, see, the wildebeest just gave a snort, and of course high on alert of what's going on around them. But you'll notice also the tail has those 3 black markings, and now and then when they move the tail, quite a lot of white under it, very light color. Pineapple, that's a very good question. I think from what I've noticed and from the experience, so if they, with wildebeest, they grind their food. So their teeth are basically designed so whenever they eat the grass, they need to grind it. And from moving it sideways instead of up and down, there's more, you could almost say more friction on the teeth, more grinding capability for them. So then they're able to grind it down into smaller bits, and then from there they can, of course, makes it easier to break down. But a very good observation. I mean, if you have a look at that, you'll notice it even more street, there are, I mean, other than the wildebeest that we find here, you do get some of the other ones. I mean, if you go more central part of South Africa and more west and north, you find what is known as the black wildebeest. So what I'd like to do is I do have a mammals book here that I'll quickly grab just to show the difference. And then, so in southern Africa, the ones that we do get here would be the two species of wildebeest. So the one, of course, let me just quickly go to the back here so I can see where it is. 224. All right, so if I move to this page right over here, so the most common one that we find here is the blue wildebeest, of course. So some of the features, as we saw in that one there, it has, I'm just going to lean like this so the sunlight is right here. I can just use my shadow to illustrate. So if you look at the horns grow out sideways. If you look at the tail, they have a black tail that goes all the way up to the base of the tail. However, another wildebeest we get in South Africa, but it's more the central area that you might find them, more the arid areas, more bigger grasslands than what we find here, is called the black wildebeest. Now, very white tail. So if you look at that picture here, you'll notice a very white light color, bit of white here on the mane, and then of course the horns, instead of going out to the side, actually points towards like the front. So it's growing out forward to the front there, not forward. And then of course the ones that you get up in East Africa is called the white bearded gnu, so which is a bit of a different species in comparison to these. But from in South Africa or Southern Africa, these are the two that we'll most likely find. But of course in this area here is the blue wildebeest, the one that we are looking at the moment. I just wanted to point out, Owen, if I can move slightly forward, I don't want to get off because then I might just disturb these Impala, but I would like to drive a little bit forward just to point out this tree to everyone here. Alright, so just bear with me, we'll just wait for the camera to get on. Alright, hold on. I'm just going to quickly stop. There's a tree here that I just wanted to point out something. Now, because of the Impala and the wildebeest around, like I've tried not to disturb them, but if you have a look on the actual tree itself, you'll notice there's some like little light colors. Can you see those markings, Owen, that looks like it's been scraped by something? Yeah. So if you have a look at that, I mean, I'm just going to lean off. I'm not going to get off the vehicle, but I just want to pick up a little piece of bark. Now, that was from elephants. You can imagine an elephant at some stage. You'll even notice the tree all the way up the tree to the very top there. Just shows you the height. I mean, this is nearly twice the height of me, and I'm like 190 in terms of centimeters, I don't know, in feet. But so that's how high this elephant actually used its tusks to basically peel the bark off, or to push its tusk into the bark and open it up so it can use its trunk and then pull the bark. Now, I actually have a little piece of bark here in my hand. Now, I'm just going to sit like this. It's already hard, but you can imagine now the elephant probably like pushed this up, and you can see something is definitely fed on here. So it might have even been that this elephant pulled this off. It might have chewed a little bit of it, because most of a tree, all the nutrients are actually in the outer bark. So all of this on the inside has all the nutrients that the elephants are after, and that's why they will peel this bark. But you can see it's definitely been fed upon. So just imagine this, maybe 2, 3, maybe even a few months before that, an elephant might have been through here, and of course would have chewed here. So we're basically touching where an elephant touched a few months ago. But a beautiful tree. This is the marula tree. So there's another drink that we thoroughly enjoy in the bushes called amarula, that's made from the fruits of this tree called the marula tree. So it doesn't have any leaves or fruits at the moment. So what we're going to do is, while we're going to carry on with our lion search, we're going to send you across to Trishal. And unfortunately, I didn't hear what she has, but I know it might be a little surprise.
I have a tambourti thicket with a baboon in it. Hello, baboons. They seem to be the only things I can find today. I went to the den. Nothing. I didn't see many tracks around either, but I did find Lioness tracks going right by the den. I didn't want to walk too close to the den just in case the cubs are in there, so I didn't see if the Lioness tracks go onto the den, but they're definitely on the road that passes the den, as in not the road we take to get in, but the road that actually passes right next to the den. So that's not great. That could be another reason that Ribbon has decided I may move these cubs. So I've checked the Cheetah Cat line one, also nothing. So we'll just be patient and watch these baboons in the meantime. It's the same troop from before, in the same area. Now we've got a tail in the air. Always entertaining to watch, almost as entertaining as it is to watch us, humans that is. Well, if you like enjoy watching us and enjoy watching all our relatives around here, as well as the other beautiful creatures that we get to show you here in WildEarth, please go over to our support page and help us out so that we can continue to bring these little joys to you. Oh, look at that golden light. They were all hanging about in one of my favorite trees out here in Juma, but as soon as they saw us approach, they were down and across very, very quickly. We've had a tough history, humans and baboons, or humans and other primates, especially here in southern Africa, humans and baboons. We're after similar types of food historically. Used to occupy similar places, treetops. And then one lineage stayed in the treetops while another jumped down and occupied the land. So that's why even up to now, we have a lot of conflict with baboons. They're also highly intelligent. And it can be quite intimidating when they want to be, and unpredictable sometimes too. They can especially be quite nasty to females, I have found. That goes for vervet monkeys too. They somehow know that I am female. I promise you it's not because of my size. Or at least I hope so. But they definitely don't react to my shouting like they do to the shouting of the males in camp. Nemesis breaks, that's an interesting question. You'd like to know if some primates have vision problems, like humans do. I mean, if they have the type of, say, diseases or eye problems like a cataract, etc., even if they have an injury to the eye and it creates scar tissue, then they will have vision problems. Some primates are trichromatic, That means that they have 3 color cones in their eyes like us. Some are not. I'm actually not sure about baboons. But being trichromatic means that they were able to pick out reds, which is very important because fruit that's ripe and tasty, and that's what you want, are red. But as for actual issues, as in actual eye ailments, I don't know of any specific diseases or problems that are just suffered by baboons. But when it comes to physical problems like we can get, baboons surely can get that too. So most animals, most mammals are dichromatic, which means they only have 2 color cones. I think, but primates in general are trichromatic, but there are a few that are not, from what I understand. So they could be colorblind, like some people can be, where they lack a red color cone, or a cone that is particularly sensitive to red light wavelength, which is what that means, and in which case that's a genetic problem, and I'm sure there's some individuals that would suffer from that. But color blindness is such a difficult thing, because one, for humans, we can communicate with each other, so we can look and do certain tests to determine whether we see this as red, green, whatever. But with a primate or an animal, that is very difficult to do because we can't speak to each other. But I'm sure that they do also have issues like that. It just makes sense because of the mechanics and the anatomy of the eye that's so similar to us. Sandy, you'd like to know if baboons can get thorns in their feet. There's no reason why they shouldn't, but they do have quite robust hands and feet, and that's obviously because they're outside all the time. If you think about people that live out in the wild and they walk around with no shoes for a long time, they get calloused feet, and that's really important because it means that if they walk around and they walk on thorns, etc., though a thorn may get into that calloused skin, it would not hurt them. Now, they would be able to get a thorn into that, but whether it will actually hurt them and whether it's soft enough to penetrate for it to be a bit of a problem, that I wouldn't know. I can't say I've seen one with a thorn in them. But also they're pretty good at grooming each other. And I think if I were a tree-swinging species, I'd try to avoid, generally, trees with thorns in them, especially since my grip is so important. And the tighter I can grip onto something, the more pressure I create that would help that thorn penetrate into my skin. So I try to avoid those trees. Most of the time, we do see them in large trees out here, so jackalberries, leadwoods. Knobthorns are also very large, but you don't see them too often in them, and that makes sense because they're thorny. Their hands and the hands of other primates and apes always remind me of a human hand with like leather gloves on them. Especially the hand of a gorilla. I think they're just enjoying the sunlight. Care Bear, you would like to know if primates have evolved to not have tonsils. Did I hear that correctly? I'm quite sure they do have tonsils, if I did hear that question correctly. Considering that our lineages are so closely related, I can't imagine why they wouldn't have tonsils if we do. I know it is vestigial, at least in us, but tonsils also have lymph nodes in them, so they're not totally vestigial. In fact, the more we learn about ourselves and our anatomy, the more we realize that there's parts of us that are vestigial or considered vestigial, but actually do serve a purpose, like the appendix, which harbors quite a lot of bacteria that we actually need for our gut. It may not be totally essential, but it is not useless. Here is a baboon in one of my favorite trees on Juma. It's a jackalberry that's on Twin Dams Road. And now Sir Baboon has escaped into the branches. It's a huge tree and I love it very much. Going back to the vision conversation, it's also interesting to note that much like ourselves, where males are more likely to have color blindness, so with primates it is the same, where they lack the red cone. Anyway, I'm going to send you over to Phinda, and I'll try and figure out what has irritated these guys.
So from one animal with very good binocular vision to another, we're still with these two male cheetah. And have a look at now the male on the right, Mr. Sleepyhead. He's now lifted his head up, and he just recently became aware of those wildebeest. And I wonder if he'll have a slightly different outlook on this situation than his brother did. We said that after watching his brother look into, or after how we watched that male on the termite mound look into the herd and not really show too much interest, I wonder if the male that's been lying further down on the right, I wonder if he'll have a change of heart. And we've seen that before with coalitions of male cheetah, where one decides that the hunt is maybe not going to happen, decides he's maybe not hungry enough, decides that maybe the risk is not worth it, but the other male decides that he's willing to give it a go. And then it's almost like a situation where you're out with your friends or with your siblings, and you look at something and you think, I'm not going to do this, and then they peer pressure you into doing it, and then sometimes the other male joins in too. And I remember watching that exact thing happened once with these two male cheetah. We were watching them in an area not far from here, and it was quite a similar situation to this. They had spotted a herd of wildebeest, and they were watching the herd very carefully and staring into the herd and scanning, looking for a youngster, and you could see their bodies kind of tense as they spotted a sub-adult wildebeest. And they watched and they watched and they watched, and you could see the one male was kind of now looking around and not that interested. But his brother, who at the time was also much skinnier, decided that he started to stalk towards the herd. And he stalked and he stalked and he started to trot. And he broke into a run, and the wildebeest spotted him, and they ran and the male cheetah ran into the middle of the herd, and he tried to single out the calf, but the herd bunched around the calf to protect it. In the meantime, the other brother, who had not looked that interested at the start, seemed to change his mind and came to the aid of his brother, and he kind of flanked around the herd. Meanwhile, the first male was still in amongst the kind of flurry of legs and horns, and eventually he kind of got bumped out of the way by a wildebeest, and he slowed down and trailed behind the back of the herd. The second male was then able to rush in and actually grab the calf, and he tackled the calf to the ground and went to go and grab it by the throat. And while he was trying to strangle it, it started to bleat, started to make a distress call, which its mother heard, and the whole wildebeest group actually rallied and circled around and came back to the aid of the calf. When the cheetah saw what was happening, he flipped the calf over to put it between himself and the approaching herd to try and use it as a bit of a barrier. And the mother wildebeest came in, and she tried to butt the cheetah off and accidentally bumped her own calf a few times, but then she was able to actually knock the cheetah off. So I'm hoping that a similar thing happens now. Like I said, even though they're not moving around too much for the time being, all we can do is sit and be patient. Like we said, they are hungry looking. They are hungry looking, and I suppose if you want to see big cats trying to hunt things, you have to find hungry big cats and then spend time with them. So I think we're going to keep doing that. And it's good to see that both of them are now up. See how both of them have got their heads up and they're both looking around now? Paige, you're asking how many cheetah are left in the wild. Paige, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 6,500 or just over that left in the whole of Africa. Which is, yeah, think about that. That's a very big space. And that's not a lot of cheetah to fill that entire space. That's why cheetah conservation is so important. And that's one of the things that we are most well known for here at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, is the conservation of cheetah that happens here in our reserve. It's about, if I'm not mistaken, about 8% of all cheetah that are left in South Africa came from our reserve. So very important meta population that we have here in terms of the success of the cheetah here at Phinda Private Game Reserve, but also in terms of the genetic diversity that we're able to maintain here, and therefore help to keep the population of cheetah in South Africa as genetically diverse as possible. That's one of the biggest threats that these cheetah face in terms of their conservation. So there's obviously things that are caused by man, like habitat destruction, habitat loss. But then there's an added kind of challenge that they face, and it comes from thousands of years ago. Scientists think that at the end of the last ice age, there was only a handful of cheetah left in the entire world. Some go as far to speculate that it was only one female and a couple of males that were left. But regardless of which of the two options it was, all the cheetah that are left on Earth today came from that very small population, and as a result they're all very, very, very similar genetically. And so that's a challenge that they face, is the lack of genetic diversity that often leads to males being infertile. And so very important that reserves are able to keep their populations of cheetahs as genetically diverse as possible. And now both flopping back down, and the cheetah on the right looking like he's ready to go back to sleep. So Marcel is saying that there's about 1,600 left in South Africa. Yeah, like we were saying, 8% of those cheetah come from here, which is quite an impressive figure. Of course, also, like we said, these cheetah have been watching these wildebeest, and I don't think these wildebeest have become aware of them. We've been watching them. They've got their heads down. They're busy grazing. They haven't even looked up once at these cheetah. So there's always a possibility that the cheetah change their minds. But there's also always, see, just as we said that, the wildebeest just came out into the open, and this male on the termite mound has spotted them again, and again his predatory instinct has been piqued. And he's again watching this herd carefully. And I was just saying to myself, there's quite a few young looking wildebeest in this herd that are definitely of a size that these two males can tackle together. And I mean, with their combined strength, they would probably be able to tackle an adult, but it would be just that much more dangerous. Rebecca, you're asking if I've met all 8% of the cheetah at Phinda. I have not, no. That's quite a lot of cheetah. 8% of 1,600, if my maths is correct. That's a little bit less than 160. No, I have not. I don't think I've met that many cheetah. Marcel's obviously very good at maths. He says it's 128. I have not met that many cheetah in my life, no. But yeah, so while they're watching these wildebeest, oh, look at that big yawn. There's always the chance that another smaller animal comes out of the bush. On our right, there's quite a dense thicket, so a herd of Impala that could have been in the thicket may come out into the open. Often in these open clearings, we get a kind of antelope called a steenbok. And if a little steenbok came out, that's definitely something that these cheetah could also try and hunt. It's definitely not going to feed them as well as a wildebeest would, but it's definitely not likely to injure them as well. It's less likely to injure them than a wildebeest would. Just remembering, a couple of years ago there was a coalition of male cheetah like these two that used to live up in the far north of our reserve, an area we haven't been able to show you just yet. And these two males, just based on their territory, they specialized in taking down wildebeest because that was the most prevalent prey species in the area, and they had their hunting tactics or techniques refined to hunting these wildebeest. And it was many in the morning where we'd head out into the grassland with guests and we'd find these two cheetah feasting on a wildebeest. And I remember not too long ago, I think it was about the end of last year, the unfortunate incident happened where one of the two brothers was caught and killed by the pride of lions that is resident in that area. And so the poor brother was then left alone. And for many days he kind of walked around calling, and it was quite heartbreaking to see him trying to find his lost brother. Obviously there was never an answer to his calls. But then of course he still had to survive by himself and hunt for himself. And we all speculated what he would do, because him and his brother were so used to hunting wildebeest and large animals, like big male Nyalas and adult wildebeest. And we thought that maybe he'd adapt his hunting techniques to hunting smaller prey like Impala and female Nyalas and reedbuck, a common reedbuck, which we used to find in pretty high numbers up there. But no, this male cheetah, even though he was by himself, he still hunted wildebeest alone. And he was obviously not as successful because he didn't have that added help of his brother to assist him in weighing the wildebeest down and pinning it to the ground and killing it. But he still actively hunted wildebeest, and unfortunately he got beaten up pretty badly for his efforts. These wildebeest he would tackle them, and his brother wasn't there to help him, and he'd get kind of butted off or kicked. But he persisted, and he was still able to kill even adult female wildebeest by himself. So look at this male cheetah now. He's up and looking very menacing. Look at how tight and tense his body looks. See how he's flattened his ears to the sides of his head. And he's keeping his head kind of below his shoulder line so that his body profile is as inconspicuous as possible against this hillside. Of course, the wildebeest being downhill from him, if they look up the hill, there's always the danger of them being able to spot his silhouette against the skyline. Now, his wonderful camouflage, that golden coat that we spoke about with the spots. Look at how well that camouflages him to the golden grass. But compared to the blue sky, he sticks out like a sore thumb. So he'll want to keep his profile below the horizon. I like the optimism of this male cheetah on the left. He still hasn't given up on this herd. He's still looking into the herd looking for that one individual that might be a feasible hunting opportunity. Myself and Marcel, ever the optimists, are going to stick with these cheetah. And once again, we will of course let you know if anything transpires here. For the meantime though, we'll send you across to Steve, who's got an update for you on his tracks.
Hello everybody, we're back with us. We've got tracks of the lions, Juma Private. They're in here. I need to get to them. I don't know where exactly, but their tracks have all come. They've been following buffalo all night, all morning. We had some vultures for a little bit, but whiteback vultures are not that reliable. We're on some Mbili in the west, and the lions have cut in there. They require a little bit of effort to go and find them. They don't always just hang out on the road. It's nice when they do. So we found coming onto Vuitela and going straight across and over onto Buvelsoek, a herd of buffalo that were tracks that had moved quite quickly. And we backtracked them all the way down to the open areas of Simbili and then picked up lion tracks coming from Elephant Plains. And then checked, they went to Simbili Dam, and they've been following these buffalo for a long time. Normally if you find buffalo that have moved far at night, they've been chased. They don't normally move very far in the evening. They'll lie down. You saw we left those buffalo last night, just crossed onto Torchwood, and then we saw them this morning in the same place. So that's generally what they do. But if lions pick up their trail and start hunting them, then they move a bit further. Okay, well, there's somewhere in there. I suppose I'm going to have to come back this afternoon and see if I can track them. They have not come out. Not come out of the block. When the wind is like this, you can have predators moving, because it makes their hunting strategy much easier. Not that the wind assists them too much with buffalo, because they just sort of storm the buffalo anyway. They don't stalk them. But it was interesting to see there was a point where they left the cubs behind and there were just adults. And the cubs would join again and then just adults. So the cubs aren't nearly ready for buffalo hunting. It's a very dangerous affair. But they do watch. Learn all the tricks. Remember folks, we are live and interactive and we need your questions, so please send them through #WildEarth or throw them in the YouTube chat stream or Twitch if it's your preferred platform. Just hoping we might just spot them from here. It's a pretty decent block. They have definitely not come out on this side. We started this side when we came in. So our roads are quite useful. While you get, you've always seen those trackers on the front of game viewers. They sit there looking at the ground. Because animals utilize roads. That's just easy. And their tracks are often quite easily identified, especially a pride of lion. A lion pride is not hard to find the tracks when you see them moving. When they start hunting, they split up a few times. We had to do a few loops around there to pick them up again. But now they're inside this block. We're not far from a little pan called One-Eyed Pan, which would be the closest point of water for them. And we've checked it already and they weren't there. which means that they're probably sleeping or eating a buffalo. One of the two. Probably sleeping and eating a buffalo. Food coma. Okay, very good. Well, we're going to carry on, see if we can get any luck with these cats. In the meantime, Nikki is looking at a money pad.
So unfortunately we haven't found these lions yet, but hopefully there'll be some good luck soon, because Barney and Sean and Rowan are still off on foot and they're trying to see if they can find these lions. But in the meantime, I thought, because early on we were talking about the elephants and talking about how they often cool themselves down, but also you can imagine now, if you look at the area behind me, it looks very clay. There's a lot of mud. Luckily it's dried out, because or else I wouldn't have been in here. But just imagine on a very warm day how an elephant will come down and possibly use its feet to try and move a bit of the mud and then grab it with their trunk and then flick it onto themselves. Even a buffalo, how they've wedged themselves in here. Now, often around areas like this, remember we saw that tree with the bark that's been stripped out. You might find that animals will start rubbing up against that bark to get rid of the ticks. Now, I have seen before, sometimes along the edges here. I know it's going to be hard to zoom in and show you all of this, but I might bring it a little bit closer. So I'm going to hold it like this so you can see a bit of the sun. So if I hold it like that, you might just notice there's a bit of grass inside this patch of mud, as well as quite a few little rocks. Now imagine if an elephant has flicked mud onto itself, or even a buffalo bull, and this mud hardens, the ticks that are on them actually harden inside, like that rock that you see right over here. And as they go and they start rubbing up against possibly what's known as a rubbing post, or maybe a tree, or anything, then this piece of clay would then fall off, or the mud will fall off, but it will fall off with the tick inside of it. And so that's one of the ways that it can actually help in order to combat the ticks. So that's what we as rangers as well do to get rid of the ticks. We go and like scratch ourselves in the mud and then go rub up against the nearby tree. But anyway, I think let's slowly carry on. Just thought I wanted to point that out. It's just so special to see. I mean, sometimes we just drive past it, but imagine just a warm day and there's a little, just after the rain, there's a bit of water in there. You might find some buffaloes laying in there. Could find some elephants, maybe the youngsters playing. Chance of warthogs. Warthogs absolutely love them, and you can often see them scratching their head and they have this little smile. Yeah, we can definitely market it as a spa day, definitely. But it is, it's really nice to see as well. And I mean, sometimes for us it's always focusing on the smallest things, because sometimes you might miss it on a drive. So doing walks, also quite nice doing that. And I think, just wanted to see if there's, I nearly thought I saw something in the road. But I think while we talking about possibly elephants moving through, or maybe even talking Caitlin, that's a very good question. I think what I've noticed is that if, let's say for example, if the mud hardens on in the actual clay and it's been rubbed off, the chances are it won't be able, because that tick will basically be trapped in that. Oh, there's some wildebeest ahead of us. However, if the buffalo or elephant goes into the water and the tick falls off and it's still not actually attached or trapped inside of it, you might find that it could still attach to another host. And what's interesting though about ticks, I just want to stop here and we'll have a look at these wildebeest. They are very, very relaxed in this nice, beautiful open area. But often what happens, especially with ticks, is they have different life stages. You get some ticks that actually, when they're born, they hatch out of eggs and then they climb onto an animal, and that's where they spend their whole time. And then when they fall off, they lay eggs and they die. Then you get ticks that are 2-phase and 3-phase. In other words, they'll go up into a host. So let's say, for example, these wildebeest, they'll drink blood until they develop a little bit. Then they'll fall off and develop even more, and then go on and start and latch on again and start drinking blood, and then fall off and develop even more from that. And they have different stages, and eventually they'll fall off, lay the eggs, and eventually die from there. But it is a very good question. But I would say in this case, it all depends if the tick is trapped. If it's not, then most likely it could possibly, and also depending on which life stage it's at, it could latch onto another host. As you see, the whole herd started moving off to the right. Now, I want to try and just point out something interesting here. Is if you look at those wildebeests, especially in the shade, if we can look at the markings on the side of the body, I think the one on the right, you'll be able to see a little bit better there. It is hard because of the shade, but I don't know if everyone will notice. It looks like there's these vertical stripes, these black stripes that run from the shoulder all the way down. It's called brindle stripes. Now, a lot of theories about that would be, it's referred to as disruptive markings. In other words, it helps to break the outline of the wildebeest, especially if it stands in the shade like that. If you notice the one that's rubbing his head against that one's bum, that it only has one horn. The other one looks like it's been broken off. And the thing about that, if it's broken off like that, it doesn't really grow back. Unfortunately, it's not like, so deer have that ability where they lose their antlers every year and it can grow back. Unfortunately, with antelope, they have like a bone structure inside, but with the creatine sheath around it, keratin, and then what happens is as soon as that breaks, it doesn't really grow back. So it's sad to see, but I'm sure you'll be able to use that one horn just as effectively, because what they'll use it for, especially in an area like this, would be to defend themselves against possible predators. Alright, but I don't think they're going to be heading anywhere very soon. You can see they're very relaxed. They're moving into a bit of shade. Charlotte, 9 years old. The reserve that we're driving in at the moment is pretty big. It's close to 15,000 hectares. And if you convert that across to... so just multiply that by 2.5 and it gives you the acres. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's around 47,000 acres. I hope my maths didn't drop me there. But around about, it's pretty big. And I mean, it's all open to the greater area, which we always talk about. But it's basically, so with Juma, with us, the whole area that these wildebeest can roam is over 2.5 million hectares. So it's a big, big area with no fences in between. But I think what I want to do is, let's carry on with this road. I think there might be a few interesting surprises as we carry along. Now, as we mentioned earlier, we have tried for these lines, and they've basically moved off to the right, and it's hard to follow them because you can just imagine with all the tall grass, as soon as an animal moves through the tall grass, we can't see the imprints of the tracks, and because of that, it will be really hard to spot it. But however, we might be looking at possibly how the grass has been pushed down. That's one option of how to look at it. Maybe there could be some animals' alarm calling in the distance, and it might be quite far off from where we are on the road, and that's why we might not be able to hear it. But hopefully with the guys on foot, there could be a chance of them spotting it. So So, I just didn't hear that. I think the signal was breaking up, but I heard Taylor had quite a beautiful bird. We're going to send you across.
We do have a wonderful bird. It is a grey heron. that is out fishing this morning. Now, this has been the most exciting thing we've seen since the elephants. We literally did a big loop around Ndlovu Dam here at Eco Training Camp so that we could film this heron because it avoided us when we were on the other side. So I'm glad that it's now out in the sun and doing something. Because when we first found it, it was just frozen solid. It was sitting on a log, literally not doing anything. But it is braving the freezing cold water and wading on through, looking for something to eat. There are so many little frogs that I'm sure are swimming around in here, lots of tiny little fish, and all sorts of other little creatures and organisms living in here. But I think today that this heron would prefer to catch a rather large meal and then just sit in the sun and bask and not have to do too much than having to catch lots of small meals. Let's see. I like this heron. We see it every day. It lives at the dam. You might also be able to hear the green woodhoopers calling in the distance. They like to go and play on the mirrors near the bathrooms at the Eco Training Camp. They make a lot of noise for those that are trying to sleep in. Ha! They shouldn't be sleeping in. Everyone should be awake and enjoying the wilderness. You can see how this heron is slowly moving though, and if you watch closely by its legs, you'll see that as it moves its foot to the next position, the water barely moves, which is very important because it doesn't want to disturb the water at all. Look at that. That is so slow. Just a couple of ripples. Otherwise, the fish or frogs will be able to pick up that it is coming towards it. And its plot of trying to stalk up towards its prey will be ruined. It always looks like it fishes from the outside, and you can see it's almost like it's maybe chasing the fish or the amphibious creatures into a bay. Not really a bay, this is not the ocean, but you get what I'm trying to say. And it might have an even better chance of catching something. If it rushes towards it, and obviously they can't come onto land unless it's a frog, but if it's a fish, it's definitely not coming onto land, and we don't have any mud skippers here. And those are a species of fish that can come out of the water. I suppose barbel catfish can do the same thing. We've definitely seen them moving from one point to another, but I don't think that will be the case today. No, it's just completely stopped. The patience that these animals must have to find food is impressive. I wouldn't do very well as an animal. I need to grab a snack immediately, otherwise I become particularly hangry. You can see how windy it is. The water is normally like glass here. But it's become very, very chilly, very icy. I wonder if it's seen anything. It doesn't look like it's ready to strike. Maybe they'll bring their heads back in and then launch it forward. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope to be wrong. I'd like to see this heron catch some breakfast. Nothing. Also, the lioness that we were searching for, it seems as though she came past this dam at some point. I don't know if we missed her. We didn't drive this side of the dam. But also when we heard her call, it sounded like she was very close to us. She wasn't doing a big full roar. But she could have been moving. It is so cold and it is nice and windy. So if she's looking for something to eat, we were talking about it being very good hunting weather for leopards and lions and cheetah. So she could still be on the move. Maybe we will see her pop out this afternoon. Lovely. I'm wondering where else we can go to try and find some... Oh, there's some blue wax bills. Can we have a look at them, Kat? I don't know if we're going to get them, because every time we point at a bird, they fly away. But basically, on what I'm assuming once must have been an acacia tortilis, they're just in the thorns. You see the broken thorns that are hanging? There we go, yeah, in there. A very clever spot to sit, just a little bit higher. Up a bit. There we go, center frame. Those are little blue wax bills, and the reason why I said that that was quite a clever place to sit is that if there were any smaller raptors, which they normally are, perched up in the leadwoods, they'd find it quite difficult to fly in and try and grab a wax bill that's sitting in a thorny tree. So even though it is quite exposed, it's obviously being out in the sun, but those little thorns that's just flown up just a little bit higher are quite daunting. You might be able to hear them doing their shh little calls. There's quite a few of them fluttering around. Very sweet, very small little birds. Been also seeing lots of green-winged pitelias, which is a pretty bird. They've been flying in and amongst the waxbills, so we shall try and keep an eye out. We've actually had a really good birding morning, which I'm surprised by. Off it goes, though. Off all the birdies go. We've seen a grey-headed bushshrike that was very unhappy, I think I told you, with the pearl-spotted owlet. So yeah, interesting. We'll see if we can get some of those birds on screen again. Off you go back across to Phinda to see how they're doing and if they're feeling the cold.
It has been an interesting morning indeed. It's been a very, very, very chilly morning, but we've had a lot of fun following lions and then unfortunately losing them, and then having the good fortune of being called in by one of our tracking vehicles who found these cheetah, and they've since then been keeping us on the edge of our seats. I don't know if Marcel can show you just how close they are now to these wildebeest. The wildebeest have grazed literally right towards the cheetah. Alas, the cheetah are still not showing much interest in them though. Maybe, like we were saying, that they haven't found an individual in this herd that they feel it will be worth it for them to hunt. Or maybe it's just that it's cold. I know, I can barely feel my toes. I need to get myself some wool socks myself. I think it's been a pretty chilly morning though, all over all the different properties that we've been filming from Juma and Pridelands, Phinda, Ngala and Tswalu. Dylan, you're asking if these cheetah have names. Dylan, we tend not to name the animals on our andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, in the sense of we don't give them names like, for example, Tandi or Tingana, but we'll name a group of, like a coalition of male cheetah like this, we'll name them after whichever part of the reserve they're from. So these males live mainly in the southern parts of the reserve, so we'll just refer to them as the south male cheetah, and that just helps us all to know which cheetah exactly we're talking about when we talk between ourselves as rangers and with researchers. But we've had a super fantastic morning. It sounds like all of you have as well, jumping between the different properties and the different guides and cameramen. We're probably going to leave these cheetah now, and I'm sure that later on today they will get up eventually once they're warm enough, go and hunt. But we're going to say goodbye for now, and we'll see you all again this afternoon on the Sunset Safari.